As the demand for telemedicine grows, so does the need for connectivity. 5G meets that need. Qualcomm remains focused on giving doctors and patients superior, security-rich 5G connectivity. Learn more at qualcomm.com/inventionage.
Hello and welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. This is episode 94, and I'm your host, Trevor Williams. And today on the show, we have Carmen Eldridge, who is the farm director at a new development in Palm Beach, Florida called Arden. So you might have heard of the term Agrihoods. Maybe you haven't. I actually never did before I heard about Tripp and Carmen. And it's this new neighborhood design, this whole concept, where a neighborhood is built, and at the center is a little farm. Specifically, it's a little 5-acre farm where residents of that community can help grow crops for the people in that community to eat. It's such a cool concept and something that I think is going to grow in the future. And Carmen, who is our guest today, and her husband have started this movement of Agrihoods, where people are buying houses or they're working on developments where agriculture, farming, nature are at the center point of these communities. So it's such a cool concept, and I'm really excited to talk with Carmen today about what they're doing, how they're kind of trying to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers with things like an Agrihood. And if you want to see more about their development, go to ardenflorida.com. It's Arden, ARDENFL.com. And you can see their whole plan for the community, for the Agrihood, and all of that really good stuff. So this is a great interview learning about Agrihoods and how they are trying to get people back to their roots with nature and farming and agriculture and all that good stuff. And don't forget, if you want a limited edition, one-of-a-kind Farm Traveler t-shirt, let me know. Email me at farmtravelerseries@gmail.com or let us know on Instagram, which is just farm_traveler, and we'll send you one. They're $20. We've got, I think, about 10 to 15 left. And so far, the response has been wonderful. They're super soft. Everybody loves them. I'm going to get some more people or some pictures of people wearing them and be like, hey, see, we actually have people that are buying these shirts, and they're super cool. So thank you, everyone, for buying them, that has bought them so far. Super excited. And you know what? I've been kind of in a reflective mood this past week, working on the podcast and all that. And, sometimes I get kind of down that, the podcast isn't as big as like a Joe Rogan show, which I mean, of course, I don't think there's any way that we're going to get 5 million downloads a week because that's crazy. But we have got a strong audience, and I am super duper thankful for you. So if you listen to this podcast, whether it's once a week or you binge listen to them on the weekends, whatever you might do, thank you so much. I know it's a lot of responsibility when people willingly choose to listen to your content. And so I want you to know that's something I will not take lightly. And I really appreciate you listening to these episodes that are 45 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, and you're just trying to learn more about agriculture. Maybe you're a farmer and you want to hear more about what's going on in the ag world. Or maybe you're a consumer and you just want to learn more about agriculture. Maybe you are my old dog, Bruce, that just wants to listen to the sound of my voice. Either way, thank you so much. I'm very glad to have you all here. So anyway, this is episode 94 with Carmen Eldridge from Agrihoods and also the Arden community, the Arden Agrihood. Hope you learn a thing or two. Hope you enjoy it. And thank you so much for listening. All right, well, Carmen Eldridge, welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited to talk with you. You are kind of behind this whole trend of something called Agrihoods, and I'm really excited to talk with you about that. But before we dive in with that, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your background and what you're doing.
Sure. So my partner Tripp and I, we are the farm directors of a master plan community farm called Arden. And I went to school for organic crop production, kind of just been in the nonprofit food world and production for the past 10, 15 years. And Tripp has as well. And we sort of stumbled upon this opportunity to, design and build the community farm here at Arden, and have absolutely fallen in love with the concept and growing here in South Florida. So yeah, we're in our third growing season right now. We're in Palm Beach County, Florida, and yeah, we're loving it.
That's cool. Yeah. So also in Florida, I'm up here in the Panhandle in Panama City. So, but my wife went to college in Tampa at USF. So we loved kind of Central Florida, super pretty, super beautiful. And so, I mean, South, a lot of people don't realize it, but Florida is super diverse in terms of agriculture. And so, what all do you guys grow? I know you said you're in your third season. So, what did you kind of start off growing, and then what are you growing now?
Sure. So we grow over 40 different varieties of vegetables, same season up as you guys up there from November to May. But we also can grow a lot of tropical fruit. So our predominant tree canopy are mangoes. We have over 12 varieties of mangoes. We also have 13 varieties of bananas, a couple of varieties of papayas. We have star fruit, mamey, Barbados cherries, wax jambu, just a lot of really unique things that love our tropical climate down here. We got a few avocados. So that's what makes it unique. And then, of course, all of the different culinary herbs and stuff like that.
There you go. That's awesome. So, what's the production look like? I mean, do you have a couple? I mean, I know you don't, but do you have like a couple 100 acres, or just a little small, larger kind of garden area? What's the production look like?
Sure. So we're growing currently on 2.5 acres. We have about 110 share CSA program that we do in season. So we have in-ground rows that are tractor ready, but we also have some larger decorative raised beds where we have a lot of culinary herbs, and then we have a lot of these perennial strips that function as permanent beneficial insect animal habitats, but also windbreaks that are full of our tropical fruits and shrubs that are on all the kind of edges of the farm.
There you go. That's super handy. Yeah, I started doing that. I mean, just even backyard gardening a few years ago. I didn't know that marigolds, for example, will keep mosquitoes away. And I was like, oh, let's plant some marigolds because they're pretty, they're orange, and I mean, they're also beneficial because they keep nasty mosquitoes away. So, and I've seen a lot. I know I've been around Central Florida where they have like a smaller citrus farm, and they have just huge evergreen trees around there forming as a natural windbreak. So it's kind of smart that people do that, and that's really cool that you're doing that too. So 2 acres doesn't seem like a lot, but I can imagine it's a huge headache, and there's a lot of responsibility kind of tending those 2 acres.
Oh, sure. We focus on quick succession crops, not over 120 days in the CSA. So we're growing a lot of salad mixes, turnips, radishes, cucumbers, and all the fan favorites like tomatoes and peppers too. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges with not having like a winter kill season. So, pests and diseases are kind of prolific year round and worse in the summertime. So we do grow organically. We embrace a lot of ecological farming practices like intensive cover cropping, and increasing biodiversity and attracting beneficial insects, stuff like that, because it is a very challenging part of the state to grow in for that reason. And yeah, being a brand new farm, we started basically on beach sand, so we trucked in copious amounts of compost to get us started, and then this third season we've seen a massive improvement with just having managed it organically for 3 years in terms of like the plant's resilience and the productivity and all that.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I can imagine it was really difficult. I mean, Florida and that sand is not the easiest soil to grow on. Luckily, up here, I mean, we've been gardening in kind of like a bigger raised bed that we built. So nothing in the soil because, I mean, basically it's maybe a little bit, the topsoil is maybe like a foot of decent dirt. Then after that, it's sand. But I guess those are Florida problems when you're surrounded by beaches on most of the state.
Sure.
So whenever you pick that produce, where exactly does it go? Do you keep it local or where do you send it to?
So, as a benefit of being an Arden resident living in the community here, they are enrolled in a farm share CSA program. So, each household receives a farm share every 4 weeks, about 5 to 8 items. So they come to the Arden barn where we have our general retail space where we also sell our produce and local farm produce and fruit. And then the residents come to pick up their farm shares here. But we're mainly exclusively growing for the residents, the folks that live in the community.
Gotcha. So let's talk about Arden. Let's talk about the community a little bit. I mean, how large is it? What's the response been like? And I mean, what's it like to be working in like a little community that's really focused on kind of sustainable agriculture?
Sure. So Arden at build out will have over upwards of 2,300 homes, and it's on 1,200 acres. So it's an agrihood, which means that instead of being built around a golf course, folks are living around our 5-acre farm in the center of the community. So the developer Freehold, all of their communities really emphasize shared experiences and outdoor lifestyle and overall wellness, and so that's kind of epitomized in the farm itself. So yeah, it's been really neat to live. Not we don't live here, but to see other folks living in a food centric community where it's such an integral part of the lifestyle and the community engagement.
That's so cool. So, what all has gone in behind the planning of the community? I mean, making sure that the farm is central to everything. I mean, are the houses also being kind of built in sustainable ways? Like, what all? How in depth has the planning gone on this?
So they, because they embrace, this outdoor living and healthy eating, there's several trails, miles of trails that go around the whole community. So in big open green spaces, like everyone's back of their houses open up into a big backyard, a big green space. Um, there's also this giant mile-long lake in the center of the community that's a 5K all the way around. So the focus is really on intentionally creating spaces for people to be outside and active because it's Florida, that we have great weather, and for people to get moving and meet their neighbors. So yeah, the one of the unique aspects of the community is over 85% of the landscaping, the plants are Florida native. And so it's not like when you go to some big master plan communities in South Florida where you look like you're driving into a tropical oasis. It really looks like you're around native Florida. So that's been really neat. And then of course we embrace sustainable farming practices at the farm.
So, are there any kind of perks that you get to have while you're living there? Like, can you go work on the farm pretty much anytime, or do you really have to have like a farming background to live there, or is it just pretty much for everybody?
No, not at all. It's definitely for everyone. We've actually met a lot of folks that have like either zero experience with food and farming or they're farmers themselves because Palm Beach County is a big agricultural county for the state, and we actually have a lot of farmers that live here as well, nearby. And pre-COVID, we were doing regular volunteer days where residents were encouraged to come out and get their hands dirty and work on the farm. We've since had to scale that back just due to social distancing and in the pandemic, but we're excited to open that up and get that started. And we also encourage residents to get involved through our other community gardens. So we have U-pick gardens, a children's garden, a butterfly garden. In the future, we're going to have a community orchard. So just different agricultural amenities to get people engaged and connected with nature, just kind of interspersed throughout the community as a whole.
Yeah, that's such a good idea. I mean, you guys are kind of taking the term agritourism, and I mean, really, with agrihoods, you're making it like an agriculture-based community where people are kind of more engaged and more aware of where their food comes from. So, is that kind of the master plan? Do you want people to know more about food production and to kind of play a bigger part in that?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have educational components, and we certainly want people to be connected with where food comes from, but also understanding the trials and tribulations of farming, about like the intense amount of time and effort that it takes to grow vegetables and fruit, and also just like a connection with nature, especially with the children's garden, getting kids engaged and having an outlet to sort of like play and learn in the sensory garden is really fun and pivotal to us. We also do workshops, which now with COVID are all virtual, but doing educational events and programming like that is definitely a core value of ours.
I can imagine. So you said this one's in Palm Beach County. Are there any other locations y'all are looking at or any possible future ones?
I know Freehold has a couple other Agrihoods across the country. So there's one in Palm Springs, California, called Miralon, and they converted sort of an abandoned golf course into an olive grove, and they also have a community U-Pick garden. There's one called Orchard Ridge near Austin, Texas, that it's they've got community gardens and U-Pick gardens, kind of like adopted bed programs, and also an orchard. And I think there's others that are in the works, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Okay, cool. I mean, those are three pretty cool states to be in, Florida, Texas, and California. Very
Sure,
different climates, all of those for sure.
definitely.
So I was reading y'all's website, and y'all kind of mentioned kind of the whole farm to table movement, and that people are slowly starting to get more curious about kind of where their food comes from. So, what are your whole thoughts on the farm to table movement? I mean, is it something that's beneficial? Do we need to improve it? What do you think?
Sure, I think there's a lot of benefits to our physical and mental health by being more connected to food and agriculture, especially younger families, Gen X and millennials. When you think about like where you want to raise your kids, you're not like imagining a sleepy golf course community. And I think there's something really appealing to a master plan community that's connected and intentionally creating space for healthy eating and outdoor lifestyles and connecting with their neighbors. And small and medium sized scale organic agriculture has an amazing opportunity and way of connecting people. And I think that's increasingly more appealing. And folks moving in aren't necessarily foodies. They're not coming from a background. There's something natural and feels good about this.
That's a very good point. It kind of, I feel like it's getting people back to focusing on their relationship with nature, which I know sounds cheesy, but I mean, the more you go outside, the happier you are. And I know, like, for example, I think it's vitamin D that comes from the sun. I mean, it just
Mhm.
improves your mood and improves your whole psyche whenever you go outside more. And
Absolutely.
And I saw I think it was in a farmer's almanac or some random gardening magazine, but it was like whenever you go outside and work in your garden barefoot, it does something to like your immune system or something. And so whenever I go outside, I try to repot plants or do anything barefoot. And, honestly, afterwards, I feel a whole lot better. I don't know if there's something to it, but I mean, you never know.
Sure, I've heard that before. There's definitely something grounding about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's funny. Are there any like huge misconceptions that you see with the whole farm to table movement, or even just with kind of farming and agriculture in general? I mean, I'm sure you see a lot of them. So, what are some misconceptions that you see out there?
We definitely encounter the expectation that food should look a certain way. I
Mm,
think people aren't aware necessarily of how much waste there is in food production to get that perfect, produce to market. And so we spent a lot of time educating residents about, what food really looks like in the garden and how it can take all different shapes and sizes. And sometimes they're funny and they're not perfect and beautiful, but they're edible and they're equally nutritious. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that we encounter. And I think too, in terms of people's relationship with food, I think there's generally a huge disconnect between farmers and consumers. Like especially with, industrial conventional agriculture, there's a lot of modern day slavery conditions that people aren't aware of. And there's massive backstories to that tomato you find in the grocery store, and a huge story to tell about the farm workers and people involved in its production. So the yeah, there's definitely some misconceptions, that those are the two that I thought of.
yeah, that first one is a really good point that we're kind of conditioned to look for that perfect produce in a store, whether it's like a banana or an apple or a lettuce or anything. And I saw a commercial a few weeks ago, and it's some company. They take quote unquote ugly produce and they put it in a box and they send it to you. And so they're trying to like kind of revolutionize how we think about food. But I mean, when you go to a store and you try to get the ripest tomato, you look for one that's perfectly round, perfectly red, and then boom. But I mean, you probably know this too, but if you get an heirloom tomato that just looks funky, it's going to taste like 10 times better than that normal perfect looking tomato. But I mean, that's just something we're kind of conditioned to now, looking for that perfect produce.
Oh, definitely. We have that conversation about tomatoes all the time. And, when folks actually eat the farm fresh tomato, they're like, holy cow, this is the best tomato I've ever had. And it's true. And it's picked at peak ripeness, and it's grown slowly, and it's not like artificially gassed in a chamber. It ripens naturally. It's different. It's way different. And it's superior in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, I mean it's more natural. I mean it's taken care of. Like you said, it's not gas to help it ripen a whole lot quicker. It's weird. It's weird. I mean, kind of the things that have happened. I mean, even with processed foods, I mean, we'll read all the labels, and I mean the labels can just say one thing and not mean them in any way, shape, or form. And we're just like, oh, it says it, so it's got to be true.
It's not.
So yeah, it's natural. It's natural, even though it's like a box of Cheerios, and I'm like, oh, where's the Cheerio plant at?
Yeah.
So, for people that don't live in one of these agrihoods, but they want to get tied back to nature or to farming or agriculture, what kind of advice would you give to them? I mean, besides moving to one of these cool agrihoods, what could they do to kind of work on getting back to nature and farming?
I think the easiest way would be to find out where the farmers markets are in your area and buy directly from farmers. Like, talk to the farmer, ask them about how they grow, like show interest in what they do and how they do it. A lot of farmers now accept food stamps, SNAP benefits, so you can, if you're in that cohort, then you can spend your SNAP benefits at farmers markets now. If you want to take it a step further, you could join a CSA, a community supported agriculture program, where you actually buy into a farm's production early on in the season, and then receive a regular box week after week from the farmer of what's ripe and ready. And then there's always the option to grow your own. Start small, have a small raised bed or some sort of container potted garden near your home, or join a community garden, and kind of appreciate the daily benefits of going through that process.
Yeah, that's all really good advice. So I can't remember if this one was in Orlando, but I'm pretty sure it was. But there was like a CSA in Orlando that I think was making the rounds on the news a few years ago. And basically, they just grow vegetable gardens in people's front yards. And whoever's house they're at, they don't have to take care of them. It's just this group of people that go around on bikes, and they'll work on the gardens like every weekend or something. And it's so cool because they might have like a small front yard, but they just transform it into this huge, beautiful garden. And I mean, it's been super neat because apparently they've been kind of revolutionizing food down there, especially in an urban area like Orlando. I mean, they're transforming just grassy areas into very highly productive little gardens. So have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with those folks. They're the spin farming, I think is what they call it.
Yeah, that's it. Hmm.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic, and I think that's caught on to different cities as well. But they sort of got the concept started. No, I think it's great, and residents here at Arden are also able to plant gardens in their backyard, do raised bed box gardens. So a lot of them will attend our introed organic gardening workshop and then get started on their own. So I think it's a way better utilization of space to be able to eat your lawn instead of just grow grass.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, what are those workshops like? I mean, do y'all cover pretty much whatever's in growing season for those residents? What all do you cover?
Yeah, so kind of, site placement, how to get like very basic, how to get started for the intro class, seed selection, because picking out the correct varieties for the state of Florida is extremely important. You can't just, show up at a big box store and expect the seeds there to thrive in our tropical, subtropical environment. So, and then like seasonality, what to plant when, and how to harvest. We also have done different like cooking demos in terms of like best practices for storage and preparation. And this year we're doing compost 101. So how to do your own compost bin. We're doing grow your own microgreens, and a workshop all on culinary herbs, like how to store and use them. So we try to mix it up and keep it timely, but definitely intro to organic gardening is the favorite.
It sounds like it. So I tried last year, I think last spring, growing our own basil and then canning it. And we had this huge basil plant. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to give us so much basil. Well, I picked the leaves off, put it in the oven, dried them, crushed them, put them in a can. And it was like maybe a couple tablespoons. And I was like, all that work for just barely any basil.
It's true. It's true. When you start dehydrating things, it's remarkable how much it shrinks.
Oh yeah. I was like, now I have a lot more respect for basil growers because that's a lot of work to do dried basil.
Oh, it's so true, and it tends to be a little bit of a finicky plant. It doesn't like to be wet, and its tendency is to get downy mildew a lot. So
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I would go out and see it and it would be mildewy or just nasty. So I'd be like, well, all right, here goes another one. But I mean, it was pretty fun. So going back to some of those classes, do you have any advice on composting? I've tried that in the past with very little success, but I know there are farmers and gardeners that swear by it. So do you have any advice on that?
so we've in our experience, we've done several different types of systems, but one that we've liked and have recommended to Arden residents in terms of its ease. We believe if it's not easy and convenient, then it's most likely not something you'll thrive at. So we've got this worm bin that it's called a hungry bin, I believe, and it looks like a green trash can, but essentially it's a very kind of passive way to compost because you don't have to like get out there with a shovel or a pitchfork and physically turn it. It's not unsightly. There's no odors. It's very contained, and then it creates a very nice finished product that's easy to harvest and apply to your lawn or garden. So essentially, you do put worms in it, and it looks like a trash can. And so the top layer is like all the compost where you put all your kitchen scraps, and then towards the bottom, it creates like this really nice, fine, broken down, finished compost product that you can kind of pull out this tray, and it's like a brick of it. And then at the very bottom, there's another tray that collects the leachate, the water, the worm tea at the bottom, so you can pour water through the whole container and then take the water and use it as kind of a liquid fertilizer. But in terms of ease of use and appearance and no smell and just like that to us has been the easiest method that we found, that it doesn't require like backbreaking work or even spinning a tumbler or anything like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I just Googled it and it does look just like a trash can. That does look super easy. I've tried it before, very haphazardly, so I might have to try something like this before. But basically with composting, you can put almost anything in except dairy products, meat products. What else can you not put in there?
I think you hit it on the dot, and dairy and meat. And I mean, in some large scale composting systems, they do add that, but it's mainly the risk of if your pile isn't hot enough, then the bad bacteria can't die. So at a home scale, they definitely recommended to leave animal products out of it. And some folks recommend not putting citrus because it's too acidic, but I think it's fine unless you're like making orange juice all winter long and it's like a boatload of citrus peels. Then I wouldn't recommend adding a lot of citrus peels in that situation. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then, we have really basic soil here, so we don't want to add a lot of eggshells because they have a lot of calcium, and we definitely don't need any more calcium in our soil. So there might be certain specific minerals elements that you want to avoid, but generally avoid the animal products.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good idea. I had no idea that you can add coffee grounds too. I mean, I think that's super cool. I mean, even with like little K cups, you can just take the coffee grounds out, put it in a pile, boom, coffee grounds, which is
Oh,
really
yeah.
interesting.
The worms love the coffee grounds too, I think, because they're just easy to eat. They're tiny already.
Does it like get them super excited with all the caffeine in there? I mean, does it make them
I feel
do
like
the
they might
composting
eat
quicker?
more. Yeah, I think they get hungrier. I don't know.
Hmm.
That's just my observation. I don't know.
Well, you never know. I guess it's one of those things. That's funny. So Carmen, what do you think about the farmer consumer relationship? Do you think it's improving? Do you think it's getting worse? Do you think it's been great that farmers can now get on something like social media and really easily share their their processes. So what do you think about the farmer consumer relationship?
Well, lately, with COVID-19, I feel like there's definitely been a rise in interest in buying directly from farmers. And I think people had a little bit of a scare with, um, what food was available in the grocery store, or just not wanting to be around a ton of people in an indoor space. So I know small scale farmers have definitely seen an uptick in sales due to the pandemic, um, and I hope people have really enjoyed the relationship with their farmers, and knowing who their farmer is. But yeah, I think that people people generally do like going to farmers markets. There's more farmers markets now than there ever has been, and I think small scale agriculture offers the opportunity for more connection and more relationships with the people that grow your food. And it's also an opportunity for, a living wage for farmers. When there's a direct to farmer relationship, the farmer tends to make better money, and the production systems and like sustainable agriculture are better for the planet. So I think there is growing interest in knowing your farmer and improving that relationship. But there's still a lot to be improved in the agriculture industry.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we since the pandemic, I mean, last year, which is still weird to say, we've been doing a better job of going to farmers markets locally, and they've been great. I mean, they sell everything from produce to enchiladas to tamales and beef, and so, and I've
Mhm.
seen more and more people going locally, and I mean, it's great because you're not only supporting local businesses, local farmers, or whatever, but you're also keeping that money in your local economy, and so you're giving the local economy a boost instead of shipping it off to Mexico or somewhere where that food is being transported from hundreds and thousands of miles away.
Sure, yeah, and definitely when talking about, global climate change, it's reducing food miles and being closer to your food source is definitely better.
Oh yeah, and do you think kind of hopefully in the future agrihoods can be super common and we can have more locally grown produce in communities?
Oh yeah, that would definitely be the dream, and it's sort of going back to basics about, how human settlements originally were designed out of necessity. So yeah, that would be the dream, for more people to be living closer to their food source, and have a relationship with the people growing their food, that they know their farmer, just like they know their doctor or their lawyer.
Yeah, that's a good point. Instead of having to get on the internet or having to find some local farmer, they can just say, "Oh, well, I live in a community. I can go work down on the farm anytime I want. I can go see what they're doing and see exactly how my food is grown." So, random question. I just thought of it. Are there any in the future at Arden or any of these agri-hoods? Would there be any livestock there, or are there any plans for that?
No, we don't have plans for livestock here at Arden. There's a lot of bees in the community, if you could
Oh,
consider that livestock. But one of our staff is a beekeeper, but we don't keep bees currently, just because there's so many hives that are naturally around the property. But no, not at Arden that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure if there is another community that has an agri community that does livestock. We were doing egg CSA shares from through our general store for a period of time, so trying to support other local growers that have their own specialties.
right. Okay. And I mean, that's a whole other can of worms there. I mean, if you have local produce or local livestock in a community like that, because you're going to need a lot more room and a lot more
Sure.
tools and resources and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, well, Carmen, this has been cool talking with you and learning more about Arden and AgriHoods. If people want to learn more about AgriHoods and you guys, where can they go to kind of see what's going on?
Well, we have a website, Arden. If they Google Arden, naturally it'll come up, but it's ardenfl as in Florida.com. That's the best way to reach us. And then on Facebook, we're Arden Naturally.
All right. Yeah, your website is super cool. I checked it out. If we're ever in Palm Beach, or we'll have to go by and check you guys out and see what's going on,
Oh,
because these things
absolutely.
sound super cool.
It's quite the trek from where you're at, but we would love to have you.
Yeah. Well, we just bought a house a few months ago, and so we've been trying to get to IKEA to buy some bookshelves, and so they don't have it in Jacksonville, so we might have to go down around Tampa to see if they have some stuff. We might have to give it a little stop by, but we'll
Awesome.
see.
Okay. What
All
about
right.
you?
Well, Carmen, well, best of luck. Thanks again for talking with us, and good luck with Agrihoods in Arden.
Okay, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.